Here in the Twin Cities, we have been a ground zero place for violence, for assassination and murder. The Hortmans at the beginning of the summer, we had the funeral here, and then the killing, the awful killing at Annunciation, where 2 dear children, their lives were taken from their families, from their friends, from their community. Families left broken and grieving, and yet also signs of light and courage, heroes in the midst of the rubble and the tragedy, the killing. You can feel it, right, with the murder of Charlie Kirk just a few days ago. Again, political violence. And there's something particularly pernicious and grave about the taking of a life of children as they are praying. That goes right to the heart of who we are. Benedict XVI said, "We are constituted and find our very being and everything about us in God. The sacred act of worship is the highest that we can imagine." And here in the United States, we exercise our political responsibility. It's both a gift and a duty, a right. Free speech, including political speech, including that speech that some people may not like. Right? We didn't judge whether Melissa Hortman was on the right side in terms of the Catholic moral teaching of every issue, in terms of opening our doors. Some in the Archdiocese would have wanted us to, but they would have been wrong. And we may not agree with everything that Charlie Kirk has said, but he had a right to say it, and his life was taken at the very moment he was exercising that right in American life. That goes right to the heart of who we are as a nation. We are the sovereign, we the people, and those freedoms are in the First Amendment, the freedom to worship and the freedom to speak what is on our mind. So friends, I feel it, and I know you do as well, but there is always a way back. We are called to be children of light, as we hear in the gospel, the longer version today. The Second Vatican Council said this in Gaudium et Spes, the Church in the Modern World, which was one of the 2 anchor documents. The hopes and dreams, the anguish and suffering, I'm paraphrasing here, of the world are also that of the people of God, who are not separated. We are in the world. We are called to be not of the world, as we hear in the gospel today, but we are in the world, incarnate, called to be a leaven, a light, salt, all coming from Jesus. This is who we are called to be. And at the Second Vatican Council, one of the important phrases is that the church is called to not be aloof or indifferent from the suffering of humanity, but to read the signs of the times and then to respond with the light of the gospel, with the truth of Jesus Christ. So friends, in the gospel and in the readings today, there is much light, there is much truth, there are first principles. This is how Catholics are called to respond. It's not possible to be a faithful Catholic and participate in political extremism. That doesn't work. Rather, our Catholic social teaching bridges divides. In some ways, we're progressive on social issues. In some ways, we're thought to be conservative or traditional, because both are oriented to human and collective flourishing. This has been the church teaching for years, and we can be bridge builders. This is what Pope Leo said as he went out upon the loggia of St. Peter's on May 8th. So what are some of those first principles and light that we can apply to our present circumstances from today's readings? Well, in the opening prayer, in the liturgy, not one of the readings, but part of our tradition, we hear that the precepts of God are founded on love of God and love of neighbor. This is what justice means: right relationship with God, right, vertically, and with neighbor horizontally. Look at the cross. Jesus is lifting up all of humanity to the Father, redeeming and reconciling us to the love of the Father. All of humanity. And that brings us to our first principle. God desires that all people be saved. This is from Paul to Timothy today. It's the will of God that all will be saved. Does that mean all will be saved? Maybe not. We don't know. But God desires that. This is why the church evangelizes, right? To extend the grace of God to all people. But that's an important principle. And it corresponds to another principle in Catholic moral teaching, that there is universal human dignity. We are a pearl of price in God's eyes. This is why God desires to save us. We are made in God's image and likeness. We have an inviolable dignity that attends to each and every one of us, and a radical equality. No one life is worth more than another. The church must stand up to universal human dignity in any place where it is threatened. Such an important principle. We also know from Amos and the prophets, and from Catholic social teaching, and from the teachings of Jesus, that we have a special solicitude or care for the poor. This was our opening hymn. For the marginalized, the unaween, the bent down, those who are suffering, those who are dispossessed, those who are affected disproportionately when bad things happen. This is rooted in the Judaic Christian tradition and in Catholic social teaching. It is not possible to be a faithful Catholic and forget about the poor, or treat them and discard them, treat them poorly with indifference or injustice. This is deeply rooted in our tradition. Who will stand up for them as they are maltreated if it's not us? So that's another principle in the readings today in Amos. And nothing fires up the prophets more than the maltreatment of the poor. You can see it in the entire prophetic tradition. Another principle. We understand in the gospel today that when Jesus is in the center of our lives, when God is in the center of our lives, all the things that we have find their proper place. You can't serve both God and mammon. I always got a kick out of it, and my sister is here, and she will no doubt remember this from Milwaukee, that anytime there was a reading like this on material wealth, my father, and he might be watching, and Dad, you know this is true, God bless him, one of the most generous people in the world, just gave to our capital campaign, but he's a bit reactionary. So if they had a lake house and he heard a gospel like that, he would say, "Susan, we're selling the lake house." Now that's not necessarily the principle that we're going to derive from today's gospel. What is the principle? That when Jesus is in the center of our lives, all that we have been given, we give back in service and in generosity. We know that it's not ours. We're given it by God, and those gifts and those resources can go and help others. Those who are poor, it can help the church, certainly. And so that is the proper principle. Today in Rome, Pope Leo said, if that is not the case, if Jesus is not in the center of our lives, we become a slave to wealth. It enslaves us. And so, friends, I want to end with a lot of hope, and I'll do this briefly. At a landmark board meeting, I talked about tangible signs of hope. What are those tangible signs in our community here at Basilica and other places? We'll look to Annunciation, the extraordinary light that has come through that time of darkness. Very, very moving how that community has rallied around. And they've said to people, you know what, we've got to do this ourselves, we'll ask for help, but they're hunkering down together to lift each other up. I see it here at the Basilica of St. Mary. On Thursday, I came for our meeting at 8 o'clock, and we had all these cranes and lifts doing the work that has come from your generosity. We've started our capital campaign, and it is funding this incredible work of preserving and restoring the first basilica in the United States, this treasure. Thank you for those who have already given and given generously. We're going to seal up this church, and then the next stage, right, we need to keep moving on the fundraising, is to restore this beautiful church. When you leave today, go see the back area. We have the mock-up here, but now we're cleaning the stone on the sides of the church. We're preserving this beautiful church. It's your faith and your generosity that has made that happen. We have a long way to go, but we will get there with your generosity and God's help. We have 50 people in our OCIA program, and it's growing. This is happening all over the church, all over the archdiocese, in Austria, in Belgium, in France. Something's happening. This is good news, friends. And some of you might be here today. And other sponsors, God bless you. This is a tangible sign of hope. Thank you for your faith. Good things are happening in the midst of darkness. Friends, we're 1/4 of the population in the United States as Catholics. We have an extraordinary tradition. We have the teachings of Jesus. We have the grace of the Eucharist. We have one another. We have beautiful parishes like the Basilica of St. Mary and others. We are called to be children of light in this at times dark age. We can make a difference with God's help, and let's do that together with courage, with faith, and always attending to those in need.